Hey guys, it's the test lead, and today I'm going to talk about my 8-year tech, software testing, software development career journey. And first off, let me address it. It was not clickbait. I was technically tricked into becoming a software tester, but I'll get to that later on. Realistically, nobody grows up saying, when I get older, I want to be a software tester, especially not 30 years ago when I was a kid. Honestly speaking, I didn't know what software testing was until I was in my 20s. I recently did a career day at my old high school where I reflected and talked about my tech journey and how I went from being a software developer to a software tester. So what happened? Let's get to it in this video. I will break this video down into a few sections. First, my college and education, and then each job I had after college. So first off, my college/education, university, whatever you want to call it, how I learned my skill set. I went to a traditional 4-year university at a small college here in New York called Farmingdale State College. It was a small school and it had an even smaller computer science program. While at Farmingdale, I also was the captain of the basketball team. I was the resident assistant of the freshman dorms, meaning I was in charge of all the freshmen that lived on campus. I also was an orientation leader and worked for campus recreation. So I was a very busy person all year round, all while still pursuing a computer science degree, which by itself is very hard. But those things taught me about time management at a young age. Because imagine balancing all that and a social life in college. And as I mentioned, small school, even smaller computer science program. My junior year, I got an internship, which I was excited about until I found out it was in networking, where I was going to do hardware stuff like set up Ethernets and take apart computers and desktops. But I was focusing on software development, which is kind of the opposite. But it was a paid internship, so why not? Give me the money. Now learn about hardware in the meantime. So I finished my 4 years, had my internship. I was about to graduate. I figured I have all these top jobs just lining up to offer me a position. Yeah, it doesn't happen like that in the real world, especially when you go to a smaller school. And then it hurt even more to find out some of my classmates did have jobs lined up. And I was a little puzzled because these people weren't that strong in programming compared to me, objectively speaking. So I inquired with them like, hey, how did you get that job already? And then I learned this life lesson. Oh, my uncle works here, or my parents have friends at this company, or my brother used to work there. So they had connections. And me not having any connections, my school didn't have any connections for me, so we were in two different playing fields. But I can't cry over that. That's out of my control. So I went back to my seasonal job at the airport. So yes, I had many jobs throughout college. I was team captain. I call that a job because that went towards my scholarship. I was orientation leader. I was a resident assistant, campus recreation. And then in the summertime, I also worked at the airport. So right now I had no career job. I went back to the airport. Got to pay some bills. But while at the airport, I was applying to jobs every day because I had this degree, so I'm going to use it. I was determined. So I applied to jobs daily for months. This process was very frustrating. I know a lot of you guys go do this right now. And then I would get these interviews that I thought were very easy and then get we went with another candidate. Or even better, not get a response at all. Some sit around waiting like, so did they like me or not? And I never got feedback. So that's why applying to jobs is a numbers game, especially when you have no experience. At least most jobs now will tell you a courtesy like, hey, they're not going to take you. But some jobs back then, you just wouldn't hear from again. Or you'll hear from months later when you already have a new job. I was basically stuck in a problem where every job wants somebody with experience, but no job wants to give you that initial experience. Until this one week when I got 2 offers in the same week. I honestly felt like I was on top of the world. I went from having nothing to it pouring jobs with 2 offers, I felt. And the craziest part was both jobs offered me in the same week, like I said. One offered on a Thursday, the other offered on a Friday. And I told both of them, hey, can I get time to think about the offer initially? So I now had a weekend to think about it, which is plenty of time. However, both my parents went on a vacation for a week from that Wednesday to the next Wednesday, and they were on a cruise, so they had no cell phone service. So now I had the biggest decision of my life, and my parents aren't even there to help me. And honestly speaking, I don't know how many even my friends know about this part of the story. I called my girlfriend at the time's father because he seemed successful, and I said, hey, I had this predicament. I had these 2 companies giving me offers. How do you feel? Like, what do you think I should do? And then he asked me like, well, what did your parents say? And I explained to him, my parents are on a cruise and they have no cell phone connections, so they don't even know that I have a job offer right now. He was like, wow, what timing. So we went through the pros and cons. Then after that, I had a clear decision made. Company 1 was 50 minutes away from where I lived, and they paid a little less, but they had a large ceiling for growth. Whereas company 2 was 20 minutes from where I lived at. They paid a little more, so I kind of realized it was a no-brainer, at least for my first job. Yes, this company made promises about more growth, but right now, I had to go by what they're giving me, which was a longer commute, which included tolls from where I lived, which is pay bridges, compared to a higher salary right now and a much shorter commute. In the interview for the company that was closer to me, they mentioned that they had tried to release the software 2 times prior, and that this 3rd and final push has to get done. They also mentioned that this is not a temporary job, which should have been kind of a red flag for me during the process, but I overlooked it. I was getting a job, but I never asked if it was temporary, and I was never listed as temporary, so why would you bring that up? We'll get to that. So I made my choice. I got back to both companies. I spoke to the company, telling them I'm accepting their offer. They gave me a start date. That same day, I went out shopping for new khakis and button-ups because I was excited to start my new job. Yes, back then we wore khakis and button-ups. I didn't start wearing t-shirts and hoodies to workplaces until my 3rd job, which we'll get to later. But normally, traditionally, if you're working in New York City, you're wearing a button-up and tie if you're going to work. So job 1, software developer. I worked in a small R&D, which is research and development department for a big manufacturing company. And honestly speaking, I had major imposter syndrome, intimidation, all of that, because I went to a small university and had my bachelor's degree in computer science, but many of my coworkers had their masters from these big institutions. So right away, I was looking around like, do I even belong here? The software that we were pushing out for my team was supposed to be the saving grace for the company. The whole company, from the manufacturers to the cashiers to other employees, will use this new software. So it was a company-wide change. For my first 6 months, I often worked 6 days a week and had a lot of late nights. Normally for my company, you had a probation period for the first 3 months where you worked 6 days. So at first I thought they were joking around, but everybody had to do it. When they first joined the company, you work 6 days to familiarize yourself more with how the company works and the company policies and other little things. And then coincidentally, after my first 3 months, the next 3 months, I continued to work 6 days a week because we had tight deadlines. So for the next 3 months, my entire team was coming in 6 days a week because we had to push. Like I said, this project failed twice before. This was the last time that they were going to try to push it out. So the day finally came. We pushed this beautiful new software out to our whole company. And then after that, we went out for drinks to celebrate. The next day, I expected everybody to be congratulating us, cheering us on, and thanking us, but that's not what happened. In all honesty, the exact opposite happened. People hate change, and I realized that at this point. For the past 20 years, Everybody has been using the same software day in and day out. Now we threw this new software at them, so they were lost. They would get easily frustrated because this was not what they were used to. To help ease some of their stress, my team lead put me in charge of creating small desktop applications for the cashiers and warehouse people and other employees to use to help the user friendliness of our new software. My applications interacted with the actual software but had an easier learning curve. And so the interface was a lot easier to use. At first I was scared because these people were angry already, but then I thought they can't get angrier, right? Actually, they didn't. It worked out. As we expected, this new interface that I created for them was a lot easier. It was very user-friendly. It was big buttons, very simple design, and helped ease some of the complexity of our new software. So let's recap. My first 3 months, I was on probation there, so I worked 6 days a week. The next 3 months, my whole team was working 6 days a week because we had to push this software out. Now our software is out, we're in the maintenance phase. We're getting all the bugs, make sure everything works as expected. Once I put my new tools out for the people to use, we finally started getting positive feedback. And then for the next 3 months, we kind of just got to relax for once. After that, the system started becoming very stable. We had less problems day to day, and then our jobs became a lot easier. Until that one day, I got that late meeting request from my boss. It was a Friday afternoon, right before it was time to leave. My boss had asked to meet with me. At the time, I didn't think too much into it, but it was a little weird. Once I came to his office and sat down, he kind of paused for a second, and then that's when I knew something was up. He informed me that this project was way over budget because of the previous failed attempts that they had before I came. And because I was the last one to join the team, they couldn't afford me anymore and had to let me go. I don't know if it was my facial expression or my body language, but then he kept reassuring me that I did nothing wrong. He kept saying I was doing a wonderful job, and then if I needed anything in the future, a reference or anything like that, to let him know. He then proceeded to hand me a letter of recommendation and then walked me out. And then after that, I was fired from my first big job. Honestly, kind of felt like a failure because I had thought I made it, and then I'm now getting unemployment checks again. And honestly speaking, yeah, it was rough working 6 days all the time, but that was the first company that took a chance on me, so I appreciate them for giving me the opportunity. But now I had that experience, so going to the next job will be a lot easier. So now let's get to job 2, software developer / tester consultant. This is when the transition happens. Now that I finally had experience, getting a second job was a lot easier. Which is why I stress to you guys, get your foot in the door, and then making that next move becomes a lot easier. That first job may not be ideal, but get that experience and then move from there to a better position. So after putting my resume out there, I quickly got offered a new job looking for a software developer. However, in the interview, they kept inquiring not only about my software development skills, but my software testing skills. And I was like, well, yeah, in my previous company, we had a small team, so we were developers and testers. And I also, because I referee basketball, I have a million jobs. We'll have a separate video about that one day. But I referee basketball, I made a basic mobile application for referees. And I told them how I had to develop that and test that. And I showed them during the interview, this is the application. And I stressed how when I first released it, I had a lot of problems. And I learned how important testing really is. So the interview went well. They gave me an offer, and I signed a 2-year contract to work for their consulting firm. In hindsight, signing that contract might seem a little off, but I just came from a company that let me go for no reason. So getting that security for 2 years works both for me and my daily stress, and for them because they have someone guaranteed for 2 years. This company was also placed in the center of New York City. So I wasn't mad about working there for 2 years. I was finally in a big city with all bright lights all the time. I loved it. On the contract, when I was reading through it, I saw my job role and title. It said software developer / tester. But the job application said just software developer. So I inquired. They told me like, yeah, you're going to do your development still, but you're also going to do testing as well. And remember, before this, I've never heard of a software tester. Normally, I just heard of like R&D teams that did the development and testing. And because they were a consulting firm, I would do this for different clients. I was now a software tester. They then explained to me I would do this development and testing for different clients, and that's part of the consulting part of their firm. And being a consultant definitely has its pros and cons. First off, I get to work in different environments frequently. I get to work with different technology at different job sites. I made a lot of connections, and that's foreshadowing for later. And last but not least, I got to see what well-run teams actually look like. Because I worked for several different clients. So by default, I saw good teams and bad teams. Now let's get to some of the cons about working for a consulting firm. Like I said, you get to see what good teams look like as well as bad teams, and you're a part of both of them. Some companies reminded you that you're just a contractor and not a regular employee for them, and they would not invite you to their company events. So there was times when there was this big party for the company, and we're there from 9 to 5, the party's at 5:15, we're not invited to the party. And that kind of hurts some. This is probably like the biggest drawback for me personally. You're limited to what the company needs you to do. So if they leased you to just do manual testing using these remedial tools, if you wanted to do anything extra, you couldn't because they're only being billed for what they asked for. So if you do extra, you're just basically giving them free money. And last but not least, long term, you didn't know where you'd be working at. At one point, I was traveling upstate 1.5 hours each way for about 6 months. It started out as a short contract, but it kept renewing me, which sounds good, but I don't keep traveling that much. On the flip side, for 3 months, I worked at St. John's University, which was about 15 minutes from where I lived at. So you get both sides, but a year away, I don't know where I'll be working at because it's whatever client needed you, that's where you'll work for. And for the company upstate, I did that commute every morning. Got up extra early, beat the traffic, clocked in extra early over there, and then came home extra early, try to beat the traffic going the other way. So an hour and a half each way, that's 3 hours of my day spent in a car and driving. At least if I'm commuting to the city on a train or subway, I can relax. But I'm driving each way, that's stressful. So I stayed there for about 3.5 years. I loved it, loved all the people I was working with, made a lot of good friendships. But I kind of felt I was reaching my growth ceiling there. Like I said, whatever the company needed that I was consulting for, that's all I did. So if they had outdated stuff and I was locked in for a year there, I was stuck doing that stuff for a year. And I saw that I was kind of regressing in my skill set. If I was older and wanted to just coast and just relax in my job role, then I would have stayed there probably the next 20 years. But I was young, I wanted more growth, wanted higher salaries, wanted to see more of the world. So I started interviewing again. I put my resume out there, started interviewing. But when you have a full-time job still, and you're trying to interview, things get a little tricky. So I get very creative a lot. I had a lot of lunch breaks where I'm running to a different company for an interview. Every sick day I had was used. I had very extra long bathroom breaks for phone interviews. People probably thought at my last client that I worked at that had crazy bad bathroom problems because I would disappear for like 20 minutes at a time and say, yeah, I was in the bathroom. But I had to do what I had to do. And most importantly, I was still getting my daily job done. So I wasn't just like coasting there. I was still getting my tasks done for that client. So they had nothing to complain about because the job was being done. So finally, I found a place that'll be a mutual fit. I no longer wanted to be a consultant. I want something that was stable, where a year from now, 2 years from now, I'll be in the same exact location. I also wanted to code daily as a tester. As a consultant, I would go months without actually writing any code. If the client just needed a manual tester because that's what they could afford, that's all I was doing. So my coding skills digressed a lot. So I wanted to make sure my new position that I was coding on a regular basis. The next problem was, once I got this new job offer, they wanted references. I couldn't use my current job as a reference because I still worked for them and they didn't know I was leaving yet. So now I was kind of stuck because I finally got this new job offer, but who can I use as a reference? So once again, I had to get creative. Remember at my first job, my boss, when he let me go, he said, if I ever needed anything, just let him know. Yeah, I'm gonna need something here, boss. And now it's been over 3 years since I've spoken to him, so I probably should have warned him. I was using him as a reference, but I tried calling him one day and he didn't answer. But I still put his name down as a reference. And I just prayed that they didn't call him. Now for my second reference, I had to get even more creative. For one of my first projects, I worked solo at another company. It was just me and another team lead who was also a consultant. But I haven't spoken to him in about 2 years now. And I'm like, does he even remember me? So that was my second reference. And once again, I called, left a message, and he didn't get back to me. So now I have 2 people that I'm blindly using as references and just hoping for the best. So a couple of days go by, and I'm like, yeah, those references definitely messed me up. I'm not hearing back from this company anymore. I do a follow-up call like, hey, what's the process looking like? And they said, yeah, we spoke to one of your references already. We're waiting to hear back from the other one. And I was like, what? They actually got back to you? So in the end, it all worked out. Both people actually vouched for me, which I thank them for a lot, especially because I hadn't spoken to them for years. And they still remember me. That's why you shouldn't burn bridges. So a week later, I negotiated my final salary, organized my start date, and then, as much as it hurt me, put my 2-week notice in for my current job. So now we're at job number 3, software developer engineer and test, which is basically just an automation engineer, where I'm writing code to create tests for different applications and platforms. So this is my current workplace. I'm at a new company, there's a lot of potential for growth, so I'm excited. I learn a lot on a daily basis, and I'm interacting with people who have 20 plus years of experience in testing, development, and architecture. So if I ever have any questions, I have wonderful places of knowledge and resources to go to. I have been here for about 3.5 years now, and 2 years ago, we actually went public as a company, which means before we were a private company, but now we're publicly traded in a stock exchange, which that whole experience and the transition was also a wonderful thing to be a part of. My role now is the lead software developer engineer and test, where I spend about 80% of my days either writing, reviewing, or maintaining the automation code for our platform. I then spend about maybe 5% doing some manual tests in case someone is out or someone is busy. And then the last 15% I actually spend on development, where I'm developing new applications for my company, which is pretty exciting, coming full circle. As part of my 80%, I mentioned reviewing code. So anybody who does automation code, their code must be reviewed by me. That's part of my job role as the lead software developer engineer and test, or automation engineer. So my company is hybrid, where we're 2 days in the office, which is beautiful because it's a New York City company. I can walk around a big city, see all the bright lights, but then the other 3 days, I'm remote, I'm working from home. So I get to spend time with my family and friends. So that's pretty cool work-life balance. There were some rough parts, especially when I first started. If you do the math correctly, I started right before the whole world shut down. I was at the company for 2 weeks. And then they said, yeah, there's some crazy things going on in the world right now. Go home for 2 weeks and then we'll reconvene from there. 2 weeks turned into 2 months. 2 months turned into 2 years. So I was working remote for like the first 2 years. And that sounds cool and all, but in my first 2 weeks, I just did onboarding. I didn't get to really know anybody. And I was used to doing in-person conversations where if I had a question, I just went to someone's desk. Now I'm on Teams trying to message people. They have no idea who I am. The other part that was kind of tough was when I first joined, they're supposed to hire 2 different people because we have 2 different teams here in New York. Unfortunately, once everything got shut down, we had a hiring freeze. So I was a shared resource for 2 teams, juggling 2 teams while remote and while not knowing anybody. So that definitely stressed me out in the beginning. But now everything worked out and I'm happy with my position. So now, what's next? Honestly speaking, I'm not too sure. I have a few options and I'm curious to hear your feedback and your thoughts. I'll give you my options and then once you have an opinion, leave it below in the comment section. So, option 1. By the time you're watching this video, I should have just graduated from my master's degree in computer science with a focus into AI. So my first choice is chase the red hot AI field right now and see, hey, do I want to be an AI engineer or developer or tester and see how that goes. Option 2. As I mentioned previously, on my current job, I'm doing a little bit more development work where I'm creating applications for my company's website and software. So option 2 is, do I go back to being a developer and then come full circle? And then the third option, which a lot of you guys might like, is continue in the QA space. Honestly speaking, YouTube was a nice creative outlet for me because certain things I can't do in my job, but with my YouTube channel, I get to experiment more. I've also met a lot of wonderful people through YouTube. I've met a lot of wonderful brands. I have a lot of collaborations on the way, a lot of opportunities. I actually teach now at a boot camp, which is also a good opportunity that I have because of YouTube. So option 3 is to just stay in the QA space and basically just take over that. I want to hear you guys' thoughts and opinions, and I'm curious, see what you guys have to say. I know this video is a little longer than my regular videos, but I get asked a lot of times, what was my QA software testing tech journey? Now I have a video to just direct people to for when they ask that question. And honestly speaking, I had a career day, as I mentioned previously, and me reflecting during that career day, I thought a lot of people may benefit from my journey because it's a very unique journey. But if this video was helpful or enjoyable to you, don't forget to leave a like. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, leave them below. Depending on when you're watching this video, when I actually publish it, I'll have a QA manual course and automation course coming out very soon. If not, it might be out already, so check my website. And last but not least, most importantly, don't forget to learn something new today.